you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K, 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 S-I-C-K,
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K, 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 S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. With Tony Marinaro.
55 seconds left in the penalty, a minute and 27 seconds left in regulation time. Boston 4, Montreal 3. Lafleur coming out rather gingerly on the right side. He gives it into Lemaire, back to Lafleur.
The sickest Montreal Canadiens podcast.
You're in the ball!
Sports entertainment like no other.
Rejoint, on lui fait perdre la rondelle, une passe devant. Et c'est le dégagement, et ce sera la victoire des Canadiens. Coupe Stanley pour les Canadiens, le 23e de l'histoire.
You found the dogs! John, you found the dogs! He found the dogs! And all together, they worked a young team to the top. And now, a 24th Stanley Cup banner will hang from the rafters of the famous Forum in Montreal. The Canadiens win the Stanley Cup!
Brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Driven to be different. LaBita.tv. Embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination. It's gonna be sick.
Good Friday evening, everyone. My name is Matt Ohayon. You know me as the Hebrew Hammer. I'm back. It's been a couple weeks since I've been on the podcast, but have no fear. I am back. I was in Boston last weekend visiting some friends, so that was fun. But ready to talk some Habs. Let's get some business out of the way first. So the Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Energy Transportation Group has recently been named by Deloitte and CIBC as one of Canada's best managed companies, the country's leading business award recognizing innovative and world-class companies. The best managed Canadian companies designation fuels Energy's purpose of creating progress for our customers, our employees, and our communities. Join a winning team and check out Energy's career page for available opportunities. We're also brought to you by Playground. Experience the world-renowned poker experience with free food and drinks at their cash game tables. A bad beat jackpot that is already over $700,000 after the world record-setting amount of $2,590,000 was won on August 2nd. Weekly promotions, daily tournaments, and unmatched customer service. Why play anywhere else? Located just over the Mercier Bridge, only minutes from downtown Montreal. Playground. And of course, by La Bitte TB beer, brewed in Quebec and a winner of a dozen international awards. La Bitte TB offers quality microbrewery beers made with premium ingredients for everyone's taste. La Bitte TB, embrace your true nature. All right, so the last time I spoke to you, I was talking to Stu Cowan. We were talking about the Canadiens, obviously, how everything was going so well. You know, the Canadiens looked good. They were playing exciting hockey. Discipline was a bit of an issue, but it was easy to look past that because they were winning games. They had a big win against the Buffalo Sabres. They had a nice win against the Columbus Blue Jackets, another big win against the Winnipeg Jets. And then the road trip happened, a mini road trip happened, and the wheels kind of sort of fell off a bit. Played against Tampa. That was a bad game. And then kind of maybe sort of turned things around last night. So let's break everything down. It's crazy that we're already a month into the season. Let's break all this down with, as I always say, one of my favorite guests, Mr. Charles-Alexis Brisebois. How we doing?
I am doing great. How are you?
I'm doing fine. I'm doing just about as well as the Canadiens, you know, because up and down, because you know that it's getting dark outside. It's crappy outside. It's cold. It's dark early, but you know I'm having a good time with friends. So it's like weird. I'm in this weird zone. I'm a little sick, but I feel good. Exactly like the Canadiens. So, I mean, what? Let's just talk about the 2 weeks that just transpired for the Canadiens, because it was really weird to me. It was weird to me that it's the same team on the ice, but they have two really different they come in two really different ways. It's either like, you know, that you could tell right off the hop, oh, they're into this game, or you could tell right off the hop it's not their night and it's probably going to be pretty bad. We didn't see that last year from the Canadiens, which was, you know, that was what was built, you know, they're to this year where they might not be that good. Okay. They're not great, but they're hovering around there, but they're not as exciting, start to season. I'm talking about start to finish. They go through these stretches of really bad games that I feel like we didn't see last year.
Yeah, you're right. And I think one of the aspects of that is the fact that the defensive core is, I know they have more experience from last year, but there are less veterans. And, without David Savard right now, without Joel Edmondson who got traded, without Chris Weidman, who was not the best defenseman, of course, but still injured and may not play at all this year. You have Mike Matheson, who's not at 100% right now. So you have up and down games. You have a lot to rely on the young guys, and they cannot take that load alone. Last year, they didn't have to. And if you remember well, of course, at the end of the season, it was very difficult because there were all those injuries. But at approximately this time last year, there was a rotation. So sometime it was Arber Xhekaj who was not playing. Sometime it was Jordan Harris. Sometimes, so there was a rotation. Right now, we do not see that. All the guys are supposed to play a lot, and you see a guy like Justin Barron, who I think is really great right now, but normally he shouldn't play at this time of his career. 21, 22, 3 minutes, it's a lot to take, and of course there's going to be some mistakes created by that. There's the fact that they're always either on PK or PP, so obviously you have a guy like Arber Xhekaj who's not playing a lot, so the other guys have to compensate. So there is a lot of considerations right now that make that the Canadiens have a lot of ups and a lot of downs.
The craziest thing is that I remember 2 weeks ago when I was talking to Stu, is that we were talking special teams, of course, because what else is new in Montreal? But but that's just out of context, right? 2 weeks later, it's a completely different conversation, because 2 weeks ago, the power play was bone dry. They couldn't do anything on it. It was frankly embarrassing how it looked exactly the same as last year. But now 2 weeks later, seem to have figured it out. They're not scoring at will on every power play, but moving the puck better, getting pucks in the back of the net, and hey, they got a middle of the pack power play. They got a top 15 power play. So I can't remember the last time we've been able to say that about the Canadiens. But two problems, one persisted and a new one popped up. The one that has persisted is the indiscipline of the Canadiens. They just really, like against Tampa Bay, you're down 4-0, and then you score late, albeit 2 goals, and you have a little bit of life, and you're right back in the box. And it was really tough to watch. And the other problem that's don't want to put it in the same class as a problem as the undisciplined play, but they don't look as threatening at 5-on-5 as they used to. It's like it's like 1 step forward, 2 steps back for this team right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like you have to correct something and it compensates somewhere else. So you have to always balance everything out, because it's a young team, and I feel like they have a lot to learn. And Martin St. Louis talking about it sometimes. I cannot just learn things to them everything at once, because they need to take the time to proceed it and to act it on the ice. So if you learn something, you kind of have to balance it out. And I feel like this is the way right now, because we were saying at the beginning of the season exactly the inverse that you just said. At 5-on-5, it was a great team. Here's the thing: they never played at 5-on-5. They were always at 5-on-4 or whatever. So that's a difficulty with this team. But right now, what we can say is, in their last 10 games, during 9 of them, they scored in the power play, and the one they didn't, it's the one against Vegas, and they scored in PK. It was Sean Monahan. So that's a nice thing to say right now about the Habs, if you want to be positive. But of course, the game of hockey is not supposed to be played that much at 5-on-4 or 4-on-5. You're supposed to be good at 5-on-5, because that's the default setting, if you say. So right now, they need to improve that. That's the thing with a team that you're building. You always have something to work on and to adjust.
So I really like that. Well, obviously, it's nice that they figured out the power play. That I don't like. Again, it's a work in progress. There's going to be games where they don't score on the power play. That's going to happen. But I think for the most part, they figured it out, which is really, really nice. And talk about like last night when they went into the power play in overtime, and that up until that power play, let's just say it, other than that save by Cade and Primeau, that was a very boring overtime, like not very uneventful.
Yeah.
It was like both teams had really one chance before that power play. It was like Nick Suzuki on the breakaway that amounted to nothing, and then on the other side, I forget who took the shot. I think it was DeBrincat, but just someone got absolutely robbed by Caden Primeau. But other than that, pretty boring. But then they go on the power play, and I'm thinking, okay, this is going to shootouts, no chance. Just with the way the game was going, it didn't feel like much was being generated. And then who else but Cole Caulfield, obviously. So it's really good that they figured it out because, it's one of those things that it feels like you've played power play at every level. It shouldn't be some master craft. Like, it's not like an NFL defensive coordinator trying to crack an opposing offense. It's really something you've been doing your whole life. So I feel like there may have been some overthinking in it, but nice to see that they figured that out. Now that they have, they gotta hammer the undisciplinedness. Like, it's so hard to watch. It's frustrating to watch. And frankly, like, to bring another football reference into it, a team that's going through penalty troubles in the NFL, which is totally not like them historically, is the New England Patriots with Bill Belichick. And people are saying, like, people are pointing fingers everywhere why the Patriots are so bad. It's the quarterback. It's the this. It's the that. Well, you got to get down to the basics. And the basics are don't beat yourself before the other team has a chance to beat you. So that's what the Canadiens are doing right now. They're kind of beating themselves because they're tiring themselves out. They're constantly defending. And like we said off the hop, they're not a very good team on the penalty kill, especially if you're going to be on the penalty kill for like 50% of the game or whatever. So I think this is something that it's not really the team has to work on. I think it's really something that Martin St. Louis has to work on. Like, we're seeing now one big shortcoming of an inexperienced coach, I would say, which is, I mean, listen, he's inexperienced. That's the nature of the game. But this is one thing he needs to work on, is he really needs to drill into these guys' heads, like, stop taking these stupid penalties.
And I'm wondering how much he relied. I don't want to say too much, but maybe a lot on David Savard, because of course you have this massive PK guy who is very good at what he does. So you can rely on him and he can teach everybody. Now that he's not on the ice for the PK, what are you doing? You have to bring some other guys who are good, but they're not Savard. And of course, the way he got injured is a very good proof of that. I mean, we remember the entire shift. It was very, very awesome. And Pat McAfee talked about it. Everyone talked about it. But now that you don't have this rock, because I'm going to call him a rock on the PK, you need to figure some other things. But as you said, if you don't have that many penalties, you don't have to figure that much the PK because you're not on it. So of course the best way not to fall on ski is not skiing, but it seems obvious, but it can apply on that case.
I like that expression. That's a good one. I'm gonna use that one. That's a good one. But no, but it's true though. And you know what? I think this is showing Canadiens fans, to all those who really like kind of just see things by the numbers, and this is not to be condescending to certain Canadiens fans, because there's ways to look at the game for everyone, but for the people who see like a player like a David Savard on a team, and they're like, just trade him away, just get him out, he's not that good and whatever. But like, he clearly means a lot to this team, because when he's out there, for the most part, he's probably not going to make a defensive mistake, which allows the other defenseman, whoever it may be paired with him, to try something crazy offensively, to do something else, and to maybe create something and implement one of those concepts that Martin St. Louis talks about so much. We're kind of seeing how this can happen when a blue liner goes down and someone has to fill in, and it's a significant blue liner leadership wise, because he was someone who again, he's not putting up offensive numbers, but at the same time, like, you see how a guy is playing on the ice. He's the guy who whether you're down, if you're down 4-0, I'm sure the Canadiens would have loved to have him against Tampa Bay the other night, because he's someone who's been there before a million times. He's a veteran and he knows how to handle those situations. Whereas, maybe you don't get to 4-0, but I don't know. It just feels like something is missing from the team, and it's a little bit of I don't want to say nastiness because they have it, but it's. I think you may have hit the nail on the head. I think it may have been a leadership issue at this point now.
Probably, and I mean, you need to have those guys. And one of my favorite examples from last year is around the exact time where Sean Monahan left against Vancouver, the season went apart, because that game they were leading from a few points. I don't remember the score, and then they lost that game and they went on a stretch, and Nick Suzuki stopped scoring because he was alone at center. So when you have those veterans that are leaving, you need to there's going to be a hit on the team for sure, and that's one of the reason why I maybe think that you don't need absolutely at all costs to trade Jake Allen. I'm not saying he's untouchable. I'm not saying if you have a good offer, you don't trade him. But wait a second before trading those kind of veterans, because they are really important for the team. Look at the way Samuel Montembeault is always talking about Jake Allen. I mean, those guys, the David Savard, the Sean Monahan, the Jake Allen, you need some of those on your team. And when you lack it, it shows.
Yeah, and that's a great segue. And don't worry, Canadiens fans. We're talking a lot of negatives for a team that's 6-5 and whatever right now. But we will get to some positives, because there are a lot of positives through the first month of the season. But let's talk about the goaltending for a second, because I like what you mentioned, how you're not on the trade Jake Allen train just yet. It's not the right time. I would agree with that. The goaltending play is, I mean, listen, we don't have Carey Price anymore in net. That's just the math. It's the way things are, but it really feels like this team, and this might just be, in the Montreal vacuum that we're seeing things, but like, this team is very right now playing similarly, or we're getting the same result as when Carey Price was in net. It's like, if the goalie's locked in, you're going to have a chance. You're going to have a chance at winning. But like, if you're not, they just listen, they have Cole Caulfield, they have Nick Suzuki, but outside of that, they don't have the firepower to go toe to toe with a team on most nights and, eke out a 6-5 win. They just don't have it. So goaltending's been a big, I don't want to say a big issue, because it's not really. I mean, we just talked about the penalty kill. They're on the freaking penalty kill for how many times a game. But against Tampa Bay, it really felt like Jake Allen was. You don't want to point fingers at one player, because I'm a firm believer that more things happen than just one guy. But he was a big reason why they got the result that they did against Tampa Bay.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, the guy has the right to have a bad night. I'm concerned of the fact that sometimes, like last year, November was not good after a good October. So I'm concerned he's going to repeat it. But I mean, it's one night. You cannot judge on one night. And the team was playing a certain way too. I want to see how much la lutte à l'interne, so how much the three goaltenders fighting against each other, maybe it brings the best out of them, and that's why we're seeing good results from Montembeault, from Allen, from Caden Primeau. But as of right now, the formula is working, so I guess Martin Saint-Louis could be happy about that. I'm sure he's not really happy to have to deal with three goaltenders, and it shows. Because you want to give them some ice time. You have one less skater to put in your element. So I'm really curious to see how it's going to end. But as of now, it's kind of working. It's not going to work for a long time. We all know that, because when you have three goaltenders, it's always the case. But as of right now, I think they made for the first month the most out of what they could do with three goaltenders.
Yeah, and a lot of people were last night, including Tony, were talking about how Caden Primeau, he was so amazing. He proved himself. It's just like it's like we said about just Jake Allen. It's just one game. Well, like, Caden Primeau has had a lot of it's just one game, and it's on the other side. It's negative. I don't want to take anything away from him, because he played unreal last night. He was unbelievable, but really. there has to be an odd man out. And listen, if he steps in and just like if he takes this opportunity, and like we always say, goaltenders, they're a little bit weirder. They take way longer to develop. If he takes this step and he proves that he could be a goalie, I think it's pretty clear that the Canadiens don't have a goaltender right now on their roster that could like shoulder 55, 60 games. Yep. But if he could do, excuse me, if he could do like a 60-40 kind of split and be one of those goalies, that's great and good for Caden Primeau, because a lot of people were losing faith in him. Remains to be seen though. I want to see more from last night though. Like that last night was good. It was promising, but I'm not back on the Caden Primeau bandwagon. I'm not part of the fan club still. I want to see more. It's like I want to be a part of it, but I can't do it. I can't do it right now. So we'll see. But again, that was a positive, a big positive from the first month of the season. If you want to split it in half, is first half of the first month, lots of people were jumping on Nick Suzuki, jumping on him, saying, "Oh, he's maybe the pressure's getting to him. Maybe he last year was just a flash in the pan and all this stuff." He's back to almost a point per game pace. He's really, really, really picked it up since I think it was, I forget which game it was, against who it was, but since he scored that first goal of the season that he did, he's really just it helps when you have Cole Caulfield who's firing on all cylinders, but he's really picked it up.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have the feeling that Martin St. Louis sees him like a fixture, like, oh, okay, we have that third line who's working and nothing is working on the second line. So we're going to try things out there. So there's one guy left. Oh, he's going to play with Suzuki. It's going to go fine because he can't play with anybody. So I feel like he's kind of used like that. I know I can rely on you. I'm not necessarily asking you to score every time because I'm putting you with guys you're not necessarily supposed to, but I know you're going to do the job. I know you're going to eat big minutes on the power play and PK and in every aspect of the game because he's able to do that. So I feel like this is one of the aspects of Nick Suzuki. And I'm curious to see, because it's only been, 3 games since Christian Dvorak is back, but now the center line is a little bit stronger. You can have some more flexibility to work with the lines and to put someone with Nick Suzuki. I'm very curious to see if Sean Monahan is going to have the chance to play on the first line, because I feel at some point they're going to want to try Alex Newhook back at center because you want to make some tests and you don't want to leave him at the wing for the entire season. I feel like they want to do the Kirby Doc way where he was a winger and a center last year. And if it's the case, Christian Dvorak is not going to go on the wing. It's going to be Sean Monahan. We know that. And there's a real possibility that the guy is going to play on the first line. So if that happens, you have a strong center line and you have, for example, Cole Caulfield and Sean Monahan with him. It could be very, very good for the captain. But as of now, he kind of has to survive. I'm going to say it this way. But we know he's playing good hockey right now. He's been called out by his coach and it's worked.
Yeah, it has. And the only thing I will say is that about that is if we'll see Sean Monahan on that first line, is that wouldn't be great in terms for one person, and that's Juraj Slafkovsky. Wouldn't be good for him, but hey, I mean, he looked good with Caulfield last night. They have there's a little something there. I feel like they should give that more looks so that it clicks, because again, like a lot of people are just after that first game of the season where Slafkovsky looked like a first overall pick, he hasn't looked that good since. And we're seeing it on the stat sheet by him not being on it very often. But again, it's just, if you're not doing something if you're not seeing the progression there and you're not seeing things you want to see out of him, like there's no shame in putting him down to Laval. And because like at that point, if Sean Monahan moves up, where do you put Slafkovsky? Because he's got to be pushed down the lineup eventually. And like, I don't know. I feel like if he's going to spend time in the bottom 6 or on the fourth line, which I don't even think they would do that, it's just send him down. Tell him to work on some things, give him some time. I mean, there's no shame in it. There's every player from that draft outside of Logan Cooley spent time in the AHL. So I don't know. I think, or every top end player, I should say. So I think, Slafkovsky, there's something there with Caulfield, and they need to work with that because just keep giving it. If you like, before you drop him down after one game, because like you said, you could try some things. You're not trying to win every game necessarily. There's a lot of experiments to be done there with the Canadiens forwards lines.
Absolutely. And, we're always talking about Slafkovsky, and now it's not as strong as it was last week because he looked great with on the first line. So it cooled down the talks a little bit. But when he's going to be a little bit off, it's going to come back. And there's a point that's going to be made about he needs to dominate. And I know he dominated at some point at the Olympics or something. But if you look at the stats from the last few years, when he was playing in Liga 2 years ago, 10 points in 31 games, and it's normal because he was young. And last year it was 10 points in 39 games, and it was normal because it was young. And now it's 2 points in 13 games, and it's normal because he's young. But at some point, you need to dominate the level, because if you've never dominated before, how can you do it in the NHL? So there's a point to be made about that too, because we all know that if he's going to Laval, he's not going on the third line, and he's not going on the second power play. He's going to be the guy. He's going to have all the big minutes, and he's going to have all the attention to him. So there's a point to be made about that. We know the Habs are not there yet, as they're saying publicly, but at some point, if it keeps going this way, maybe they will have to consider it. So I think we're not going to see it before Christmas, but maybe after Christmas, if it keeps going, there's a point to be made about sending him to Laval.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's not going to happen before Christmas unless something crazy happens. Yeah. It's a frustrating. He's a frustrating player to watch, but not in a bad way. Just because what's there. It's not a Josh Anderson situation where like all he does is just go up and down, and like sometimes he'll go east-west, but there's something there with Slafkovsky. Like it just. It needs to be unlocked, and I don't know what needs to happen, because if I did know, I'd probably be working for the Canadiens. But you could see it. Just he has a shot. He has the skating ability. He has the frame. He has the tools. It just feels like maybe he's a little just too raw. And that's okay. There are a lot of raw talents across all sports, but someone needs to find the secret sauce that will pull this thing all together for him, because right now it's just, I feel like the longer he stays up and isn't producing, it's just a downward spiral. It's just not good, because like he gets down on himself, and we've seen this so many times. Like how many times have we said Galchenyuk, when he was in Montreal, he could have used 1 or 2 more years in junior or the minors, and he was just thrusted into a situation maybe a little bit too quick. But another guy who needs to pick it up, and we have gone, I think, let's do the math, 29 minutes without mentioning his name. It's like we just spent a couple minutes not dumping on Slafkovsky, but talking about him negatively. Is another guy is Josh Anderson. We mentioned his name I mentioned his name very briefly, but there was a crazy stat that I came across, and I don't have it in front of me, but it was something of the effect of like every player with Josh Anderson versus without him, they are producing way more without him, and he just, I don't know. I don't know, because I was on the trade him train last year. I don't even know if teams still look at him the way they used to anymore, because it's been tough putting for Josh Anderson.
I guess it was a difficult position in the last few months or few years, whatever, for Jeff Gordon and Kent Hughes about Josh Anderson, because you don't necessarily want to be the one who traded him too early and for not enough and see him develop into a hell of a player somewhere. But at the same time, you have this contract. So there are those two sides about Josh Anderson that you're just not sure what you're gonna get. My point about Josh Anderson was, he was very good in the playoffs. And I remember in 2019 when the Blue Jackets swept the Tampa Bay Lightning. In Tampa Bay, they were saying we had no answer against Josh Anderson, and he had 1 assist in 4 games or something like that. And it's because of his play. And I know he's not the same player as Philippe Danault, but it's the same case. Philippe Danault in 2021 was good, not because he was scoring, but because he was so efficient on the ice in his own way. And that's the same kind of thing about Josh Anderson, who is really a playoff guy. And I'm wondering if the Canadiens are making the playoffs in 2-3 years. Is he still going to be in his prime? Is he still going to be that kind of guy? Can you try to sell him to another team saying, hey, you know what? You are a playoff team. He is a playoff player. You are meant to be together, because right now we're not there in Montreal. And right now, the concept of Martin St. Louis is not working on him. He's one of those guys who regressed since the coaching change a year and a half ago. And it's not usual, because usually all the guys progressed when Dominique Ducharme left. It's not the case with Josh Anderson. And as you said, I remember the graph you're talking about. It was something like the goal expected or whatever. I don't exactly remember. But when the guy played with Josh Anderson, their goal expected was really lower than when they were playing far from Josh Anderson. So as of right now, it's not just, as you said, he's going to develop. No, we know what Josh Anderson is all about, and I don't think it's a fit in Montreal anymore. So if you have that opportunity, you need to take it. But with that kind of contract, $5.5 million for a few years, 2027, if I remember correctly, it's really hard to see a team taking that kind of money without asking Kent Hughes to keep a part of the salary.
Yeah, it's tough. And you know what? It's a shame, because Anderson, Canadiens fans take the production out of it. Canadiens fans love him. And you know what? The players do too. He's a big leader in that room.
Well,
but at the same time, it's just, he does best off the rush. And this is a Canadiens team that does not play off the rush anymore. They like to get into the zone, find open looks, and attack that way through a possession style of game. And that's just not his game, because he goes up and down the ice at 100 miles an hour. And if it doesn't score, then it's probably he cut to the net and it's under the goalie's glove, if not back in the back of the net. So it's really been tough to watch Josh Anderson. Like any time I'm watching a game, and like if I'm watching on TSN, it's Brian Mudryk, and he'll be like, oh my, and again Josh Anderson, oh so close, and it's like, how many times can you hear "oh so close"? And we're frustrated watching it. Imagine him playing. So it's really tough. It's really, really tough. I think a change of scenery would be good for Josh Anderson. I think it would be good for the Canadiens because they could. That was the big complaint when they brought in Tanner Pearson was, you're not bringing someone up, you're bringing someone in. And if you move out Josh Anderson, which again, like you said, I don't know how they're going to do it without giving up something substantial or eating a good amount of salary, which I don't even think they can eat salary anymore. Yeah, it's tough sledding. But who it isn't tough sledding for is, it was for a couple games, and you mentioned him off the top, but he has had just pretty much as expected, I think, by a lot of Canadiens fans, is Mike Matheson, because he had a couple games where he didn't look himself, but last night he looked himself again, and he looked like his best self, because he was all over the ice and 3 points on the board. Like this team, at least on the defensive side, he's a big leader. If it's not Caulfield, if it's not Suzuki, for me, it's Mike Matheson. He generates just so much, both with his vision and with his legs.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you look at the fact that they acquired him for Jeff Petrie, who's useless for a second team in a second year, that's really telling something about the fact that they brought in a good guy, they gave him some confidence and all those things we talked last year. We wanted to see, this year, is he going to be able to reproduce it And clearly we understand that he's injured somewhere. It's clear he's not playing the way he was last year. But if you see glimpses like last night where he was really really good, and he was skating a lot, and he had a lot of points, and he played a lot of minutes, the Habs really needed, like, right now, because, as I said, there are 5 young guys, and I consider that Jonathan Kovacevic is still a young guy. I know he's a little bit older, but still only his second year in the NHL. You need to have this Mike Matheson, who's playing a lot, who's taking minutes for the kids to be able to rest on the bench sometimes. So he's playing really an important role on the power play, on the ice in general. You need him to in overtime, because the Habs seems to always find their way to overtime this year. So no, that's really a great acquisition. He has an A on his shirt now, so that's selling something.
You know who else has looked really good since he's come up from Laval, and it feels good, is Yoel Armia, because a lot of people just dumping all over the guy, and you know what? Some deserve, some not. The amount of criticism he's received, but I think that time in Laval really did him some good, and he looks, again, he's not in the role anymore of on the third line, and we need him to put the puck in the net. He's not there anymore, but he makes a lot of money. I get that, but for the way he's playing, for what he's bringing. He's being more physical than I remembered him being in the past. Because, like it used to be like if he doesn't score 2 goals and get 2 assists, which would happen once, seems like once every maybe 13, 15 games, he's invisible. But now, he's on the fourth line, and he's playing with 2 guys that, for more, they're not the most skilled guys in Evans and Pizzetta, but they bring it every night. Like they're in the mix. They're always shaking it up. They're always, playing every shift like it's their last. Like all those cliches, they actually do that, and I think that energized him a little bit. So he's been a pretty good addition to this team halfway through the month.
He's a little bit better than he was last year, but I don't really see him on the ice. I mean, I see him sometimes, but I don't think he's a really important factor on that team. Of course, we don't ask him to be a top 6 guy. And as you said, he plays with Michael Pizzetta, and he plays with Jake Evans. It's not always easy to play in that position, but I think he's not doing bad. I think he's not doing good. I think he's doing just okay, which is better than last year. I hope he understood the message, because it was a clear and loud message. They didn't keep him in Laval for that long. I think he played 4 games or something like that. But if he can understand it and be able to up his game and find his way back to the NHL, it's going to be a good addition for Montreal, because at this salary, 3.4 for the next 2 years, including this one, you need to have Joel Armia who's giving you at least a little bit of something.
Well, that's it. I'm not. He's not the second coming here of his career, but it's nice to see that he's not playing under the scrutiny that he was playing, because like it felt kind of cheap for me, at least, to hear the noise and why this team is doing so poorly last year. It was basically placed on a couple guys' shoulders. One, nonstop, you would hear Jonathan Drouin last year. 2, you would hear Yoel Armia. You would hear those 2 names the most. And you know what? It's nice to see that he at least seems a little more bought in, and frankly, he has no choice, because he knows if he doesn't buy in, there's not exactly teams lining up to take him. And if he doesn't buy in and he just lets his contract run out, pretty much it's salut la visite for your NHL career. So, so it's just nice. It's nice to see him, just at least buying into the team, because like we talked about the lack of veterans on the team. He's a veteran guy. He's old. Yep. He's been through it all. He's done it all except for win a Stanley Cup, but he came close with the Canadiens. So he knows what it's like to be in all these situations. And I think Canadiens players, they're not going to look to him in times of adversity, but if he carries himself, like David Savard did in tough losses and stuff like that, then that message gets across to younger guys, because like the younger guys saw this season, just because you have a big contract or you're making a good amount of money, I should say, and you've been on the team forever, it doesn't mean you will. It doesn't mean you have a spot guaranteed on this team. So I think it's nice to see him. It's just nice to see him out there a little bit. Not just kind of gliding. He looks like he looks like a hockey player out there.
Yeah. And the message that they send is a good point, because what's harder to put him on the waivers? It's the first time, because if they have to do it a second time, for the next few days, he can just go to Laval without going through waivers. But if they have to do it a second time, for example, in 3 weeks or whatever, it's not as hard as the first time, because the first shock is really bigger. And the way he is playing right now, he deserves to be in the NHL, but he is on thin ice. We all know that. And if they decide to send him back to Laval, they could just say to him, hey, you're used to it. We're sending the same message to you, because we need to send you a message. We need to send the team a message. So it could be a factor. But as of now, I think on the fourth line, he's not doing any harm to the Canadiens.
So I think you noticed it. I definitely noticed it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you did notice it. Okay. Yeah, I make this joke every now and then. This is a last year joke I've made a couple times. It's happening now. It's happening as we speak. The background is falling. This is great. This is live podcasting. This is why we do this. This is why we play the game, Charles. This is why we play the game. Yeah, so it finally happened. I'm going to have a nice conversation with... should be fine. I'm going to have a nice conversation with Sammy and Agnello about getting me a new background, because the one they gave me is about 800 pounds. And no matter how much duct tape I put on it to hang on the wall, it ain't doing the trick. And little tiny nails ain't going to do the trick either. So I will be having that chat. What's that?
The real question is, if it falls, what's behind the...
Oh, you don't listen. It's like that wall is, because of the amount of times it's fallen. Like when I'm just, working or whatever, there are a lot of paint. That's a lot of ripped off paint on behind that wall. It is not pretty. So yeah, it's listen, we're hanging on here. We're hanging on, but I mean, listen, let's get back to the cage. If it falls on my head, it falls on my head. Don't break stride, because that's what professionals do. I think the biggest positive that we could talk about this season, more so than just like Cole Caulfield being back, because he's pretty much doing exactly what we expected him to do. He's as electric as we remembered and all that. Nick Suzuki is playing very well, like we mentioned. One unit that needs a lot of attention, and we mentioned 1/3 of it, is the third line, because that is the line that's like, this is just like a beautifully crafted line. And I think a lot of people were skeptical of it. A lot of people were critical of it before game one, but oh yeah, it's fallen.
Oh yeah.
No, we're fine for now. But no, I think a lot of people were skeptical of it, but this is a line of professional hockey players, as Stu Cowan likes to say. These are professionals that will not cost you the game. They will not go out there and make mistakes. They're not the most skilled bunch, but these are very, very capable hockey players. And it seems like if you're ever in a jam, like let's say you're up 3-0 and you just got scored on 3 times in a row, they tie, whatever team it is ties the game 3-3, Martin St. Louis timeout, and then right out of the timeout, I'm throwing that line on the ice for stability and just let's get things under control, because they have been nothing short of amazing, I'll even say, because Sean Monahan, we throw flowers at him and people, for whatever reason, don't love him. Well, he has 12 points in 13 games. Like, that is amazing. And it did. It fell. It fell on me. You have the chance to answer. I will fix this. Go ahead.
I mean, we can talk about Sean Monahan, and I think we all expected him to be good this year if he was healthy, which is right now the case, and he is very effective. He can play center, and as I said, he can still go on the wings if needed at some point in the season. I didn't have on my bingo card having Brendan Gallagher having a good season. For me, it was not necessarily a possibility, but as now he's playing with two good guys for him, he is playing a little bit less, which is helping because he's always out of breath when he's coming back to the bench. So let's give him a little bit more time to catch his breath. And Tanner Pearson, we just didn't know what to expect. It was kind of a Sean Monahan 2.0 because he was coming back from an injury. He didn't play for the last few months or whatever. So right now he's looking good. He's rebuilding his value back. He could be a very, very good candidate at the trade deadline for Kent Hughes to trade to another team. So as of right now, those guys are all playing for something. They're all playing to prove that they still are good players, because at some point in their career, like 4 or 5 years ago, those three guys in LA, in Calgary, and in Montreal, in the case of Brendan Gallagher, they were all very good players. Brendan Gallagher played on the first line for many years in Montreal, and I think we tend to forget that, me first, because he's really not that player anymore. But in the role they're having, in the fact that we say, hey, we're going to give you some responsibilities in the as you're capable to take them. We're not going to ask you to play 25 minutes because that's not something realistic for especially for Gallagher. But as of they're playing right now, they are a really effective line, and I'm pretty sure that Martin St. Louis wouldn't trade that line for anything.
Yeah, because Tanner Pearson, I think something that shocked a lot of people. I remember him. I remember him in his time in LA, won a cup. Was part of that line with Toffoli. It was the '70s line. I forget who the third piece was to that line, but it was definitely called the '70s line. And he was a very, very effective player. And just like we said, just got derailed by injuries, a lot like Sean Monahan. And he has like a wicked shot. Like nobody saw this thing coming. Like, oh my God, can he snap that puck? It is really something to see. So he's done very well for himself. It's very, very encouraging to see. And it's just nice that the Canadiens don't have to, when things are going badly and like they got their hands in the air, they don't know who to look to. They just look to that line to go out there and stabilize things, because they just don't make mistakes. Like it's crazy. They're never going to cost you, or very rarely going to cost you a goal. So it's really crazy. It's really great to watch. It feels really good, to see the comeback that Sean Monahan had, because I think he's not that old. No. Off the top of my head, I can't. I think I just Googled it. It's he's 29 years old. Yeah, or he may have just turned. He's 28, 29. Like that is not old. And this is a guy who was a 6th overall pick, if I remember correctly. He's got some juice left, and come deadline time, if he gets moved, he's one of those players like Corey Perry was received at the Bell Center. Cheers, because really he's just an easy guy to root for, because he's been through it all, and a lot of people were disappointed last year when he went down with that foot injury, and kind of counted him out. Oh, we don't really know what's going to happen with Monahan this year. Well, he looks amazing. It's just fantastic for the Canadiens.
Yeah. And what is really good for him, he is, in French, we say a couteau suisse, like a guy you can use in every situation.
Swiss Army knife.
Swiss Army knife, exactly. So he's that kind of guy, as I said, you can put him literally everywhere on the top 9 and probably top 12, but you don't want to have him on the 4th line. And he's going to respond effectively. So we're talking about that third line right now. It's working. And the day it's not going to be working anymore and there's going to be more flexibility, he's going to play somewhere else and it's going to work out. And the way I like for him is, I was talking about Gallagher needing some time on the bench. That time he can have when Sean Monahan is playing on the first power play. So that's really cool for him. The fact that, I'm asking you to play with Pearson and Gallagher, but I'm still giving you that candy that, you can go play with Cole Caulfield and Nick Suzuki and Mike Matheson, all those guys on the first unit of the power play. He is an effective tool on the power play. So he has a very a very Sean Monahan role, I'm going to call it, and it's working right now for the Canadiens. The importance of having that veteran back in Montreal, a city which I guess he really likes, because if not, he would not have come back this summer as a free agent. It's really, really something to consider for Martin St. Louis and his coaching staff.
You know what I'll say is tomorrow night they got Boston. That's going to be a big I don't know if this expression is if they have this expression in French, but it's a big litmus test. It's to see where your team is, like against the big guys, see how you could play. And they played really well against Vegas, and they probably could have won that game. But now we're going to see them against they're not regular season wise the best team in the East. It's a big game. They've only lost once in regulation. It's a big rivalry game against Boston. It's at the Bell Center Saturday night. It's a big stage. I want to see. There's going to be a couple guys that you're going to look at. First, we're going to look at who's the starting goaltender. I don't think it's going to be Caden Primeau. You can make the argument that it should be him based off of he deserved it after last night. I don't think he's ready for that. That's a big spot to put a guy who just got a nice confidence building win. However, so we're going to be looking at the goaltender. It's probably going to be Jake Allen. Then we're going to be looking at, obviously, Nick Suzuki, Cole Caulfield. You can't see my fingers. I'm holding them up on the wrong way. That's got to do the reverse with the camera. We're also going to be looking at Mike Matheson. It's the usual suspects. But I'm gonna be looking at that third line tomorrow night, because tomorrow night is that chance where you're in the fight. It's a tough fought game. You're in there. Maybe you just got scored on twice in a minute or 2 minutes, but you're in the game. You're showing fight. That's the line I'm gonna look for to really respond, because it can't just be all on Cole Caulfield and Nick Suzuki. It can't. They're not those guys yet. You can make the argument that Caulfield is one of the best right wingers in the league, but he can't carry a team yet. He can't do it.
No.
This is a line that has proven that they've been in every single spot before. It's the value that they hold as veterans. I'm really, really excited for tomorrow night's game. Like, in my head, it's a close game, which probably means in reality it's going to be an 8-0 blowout. But I mean, how could you not get excited about Montreal Boston on a Saturday night?
Yeah, absolutely. That's what you're looking for. When Boston or when Toronto are in town, that's something that's always different. You're talking about that third line, and you're right, because that's the stability that Martin St. Louis is going to be looking for. Even the top six, it was shaken a lot with Caulfield and Suzuki being separated for last game. They reunited on the power play and 3-on-3, but during the game they played apart, and you need that stability to say, okay, we're going to have those guys who are going to be important to us. We thought the stability was going to be Caulfield and Suzuki at the beginning of the season, and they were for a long time, and I'm pretty sure sometime during next week they're probably going to be back together. But as of right now, you need to work on that. And one thing I want to add too about the Boston Bruins, I'm sure Martin St. Louis is going to use them as an example, saying, hey, you know what, they lost Patrice Bergeron, they lost David Krejci, they lost center 1, center 2, and even then they keep playing, and they keep playing good, and it's one of the good team in the NHL. So that's the value of a team. One man down, but anyone can take, not anyone, but a lot of people can take their place, and they can just keep running with the ball. So that's what I like about this Boston team. There is a huge culture that's taking care of itself, to quote Martin St. Louis, and to see that they can keep playing like this at this pace without two key guys. It's really important, and it's really impressive. I'm sure that Martin St. Louis can be inspired by that.
So then Sunday night, interesting. They got the Vancouver Canucks, who I think everyone thought at the beginning of the season, it's just the Canucks, whatever, no big deal. 10-2-1. So, I mean, to me, the next 3 games, they got Boston on Saturday, Vancouver on Sunday. Weird to get a home game on a Sunday, Sunday night rather. And then they got the Calgary Flames at home on Tuesday. To me, it's Jake Allen, Samuel Montembeault, Caden Primeau. If you want to keep the good times moving with Caden Primeau, you want to give him the time.
It's not going to be that because Primeau plays every 2 weeks, but I hope you're right.
Yeah.
I really hope you're right. And if it's the case, it's going to be a long time for Samuel Montembeault because he played against Tampa Bay, but he would have played against Vancouver, and then he's going to wait. And probably that after that, Martin St. Louis would come back with Jake Allen because it's in his mind, it is the number one goaltender if we see the tendencies from the beginning of the season. And, I look at next week, there are going to be, again, four games if you include the Sunday game against the Canucks. I wonder how it's going to be played out. And I don't think they're going to do that. I would maybe do something like this, not playing Caden Primeau for the 5 games and being able to send him to Laval on a conditioning stints for 2 weeks. But I think if they had to do that, they would have done that before. At some point, he didn't play for 5 games and he was eligible to go to Laval and he didn't. So I think the Habs, they want to see him in the NHL. So as you said, if he is in the NHL, he should play. Against Calgary would be a good spot because after that it's Vegas, it's Boston. It's probably not the best for Caden Primeau to play, but it's going to be a really tough one for Martin St. Louis, who's probably already scratching his head saying, oh my God, who am I going to play for those games?
Well, that was my thinking, is that it's a stretch of tough games. Calgary is probably the most winnable one. They're definitely the worst team that they're playing in that stretch. So it's the most winnable game. I think it's a good spot because he just had such a good performance. Like if he went out last night and the Canadiens won 5-4 and he didn't look that good, it's like, okay, play again. You'll play again in 2 weeks, no problem. But he just played really well. You kind of want to build on that, and that feels like the perfect game. Just kind of put right in the middle of 5 really tough games. So it's like you got Boston, Vancouver, Calgary, Vegas, Boston. It's the perfect spot for him. It's the perfect spot. I don't know. I could be a coach. I could be a coach in the future.
And I wonder how much the tractations from the market of the goaltender can affect it. For example, if can't you say, hey, you know what? I would really like to see Caden Primeau play that game, or I would really like to see Jake Allen playing that game. It could be something that factors in because the vitrine that we usually see in February or March, where you see players in good spot to try to give them values to trade them. It could exist right now for the goaltenders because the market in general is not great. I mean, the Habs are not about to move away a skater. We kind of know that, but for the goaltenders, it's a completely different situation. I feel like right now we have like those 20 skaters and those 3 goaltenders, and it's 2 completely different teams, and it's 2 completely different situations that requires the same amount of energy just trying to deal with them because having 3 goaltenders really, really looks exhausting.
Yeah, because it's easy when you have 2. It's just, okay, you're in, then you're in. You're in, then you're in. Now it's like you got to keep 3 people happy. Plus, you don't want to be wasting a roster spot. It's listen, I'm happy. I'm not I mean, pros and cons. I'm happy this is not something I have to deal with on a day-to-day situation. We'll put it that way. Charles, have a great weekend. Thank you for joining me.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, that was Charles-Alexis Brisebois. I'm Matt Ohayon. You finally saw it. You saw the background follow me. It happened. Where do we go from here? Again, I'm going to have a nice chat with Sammy and Yellow. For Shane Gaumont, back at Master Control. We'll catch you next time.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group, driven to be different. LaVie.tv, embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination.